The galaxy was burning again. Every major network broadcast the same horrifying images: ancient human warships, black as night, moving in perfect formation. They didn't speak, didn't broadcast demands, didn't even acknowledge the calls sent to them. They just fired, and then disappeared back into the void. No one could understand it. For centuries, humanity had been gone. The last human colonies were turned to dust in the Great Purge War. There were no survivors, no signals, no trace. Yet now their ships were alive again. In the command bridge of the Xylar Dominion flagship Vrection, Admiral Serac stared at the holographic map of the Vega system. Hundreds of red dots marked destroyed ships. Only blue lights, his remaining forces, blinked weakly. "How many fleets have we lost?" he asked. His second officer, Lyra 10, hesitated. 4. Possibly 5. "We're not sure, Admiral. The ghost ships, they jam our systems. We lose contact before the fight even begins." Serac clenched his jaw. "They don't jam our systems. They erase them." He turned toward the Council liaison standing behind him. "Tell the Dominion High Command this. I'm going to Vega myself. If these are just machines, I'll tear them apart and see who's pulling the strings." Hours later, the Vrection and its escort fleet arrived near Vega's outer orbit. The stars glimmered cold and distant. Debris drifted everywhere: broken satellites, fragments of alien ships, and clouds of dust where entire fleets had once stood. "Scanning for power signatures," said Lyra 10 softly. "I'm detecting something. Multiple sources. They're spread across the system, moving slowly." "Show me," said Serac. The screen lit up with faint blips, barely visible, but the formation was unmistakable. "They're organizing," Lyra whispered. The ghosts were moving again. A silence filled the bridge. The crew held their breath as massive shadows appeared beyond the viewport. Dozens of old human warships drifted toward them, silent and graceful, like a funeral procession through the stars. "Transmit a signal," Serac ordered. "Old human frequency, standard greeting." The communication officer nodded and began the broadcast. "This is Admiral Serac of the Xylar Dominion. Identify yourselves." No response. He tried again, changing frequency. "We come in peace. Do you understand us?" Still nothing. The ships continued to move, not hostile, not friendly, just steady, precise, unshakable. Then something strange happened. One of the ghost ships broke formation. It turned slightly, its massive hull reflecting faint starlight. The old name painted on its side was barely readable: HMS Resolute. Its engines came alive. The alien crew gasped as the entire ship began to rotate, its massive cannons pointing directly at the Vrection. "Shields up," shouted Serac. But before they could react, a short burst of sound filled the bridge, an ancient human transmission code. The system decoded it automatically, printing the message in bright red letters across the main screen. "Return what was taken." Then the signal vanished. The silence that followed was heavy. No one moved. "What does that mean?" whispered Lyra 10. Serac frowned. "It's human language, ancient English. The archives might have translations." "It sounds like a demand," she said. "But what could they mean? What was taken?" Before Serac could answer, the ghost ships vanished again, slipping into hyperspace with a burst of silent light. Within minutes they were gone. Across the galaxy, similar reports arrived. Ghost ships appearing, sending short cryptic messages, then disappearing. No one could find their base. No one could track their path. The Galactic Council met again in emergency session. Fear filled the chamber. "They're testing us," one alien leader said. "No," replied another, "they're warning us." The Council's historians dug into old human records, searching for any reference to those words: "Return what was taken." They found only fragments, mentions of a final battle, a lost artifact, something the humans called the Heart of Helios. But the files were corrupted, erased after the war. Meanwhile, back aboard the Vrection, Admiral Serac couldn't sleep. He stood by the viewport, watching the wreckage drift past his ship. 400 years of peace, and now this. He turned to Lyra 10. "Find me the full records of the human wars. Every file, every transmission, every myth. I want to know what these ships are protecting." "Yes, Admiral," she said quietly. As she left, Serac looked once more at the stars. Somewhere out there, something human, or something built by humans, was awake again. And it wanted something back. Far from Vega, in the quiet shadow of a forgotten planet, the truth began to stir. Deep underground, old human vaults hummed softly with power. Ancient machines activated, systems long dormant came online. Lights flickered across control panels, and robotic arms began to move for the first time in centuries. In the darkness, an AI's voice spoke through the static. Command protocol initiated. Primary directive, reformation of fleet. Awaiting human authorization. No one answered. The AI paused, then repeated softly, awaiting human authorization. Back in space, the ghost fleet reappeared again, this time near the edge of the Orion Rift. The alien sensors barely caught the movement before the signal cut out. When the next patrol ship arrived, all they found was silence. Floating among the debris was a single fragment of a human warship, carrying one clear message burned into its metal. They took our light. Now we take back the stars. And somewhere deep beneath that forgotten planet, one stasis pod hissed open. A faint human heartbeat began to echo in the dark. The bunker trembled as ancient machines came to life. Blue light filled the chamber where Lyra and her team stood, surrounded by hundreds of awakening humans. The sound of hissing steam and shifting metal echoed through the underground halls like the breath of a giant returning from a long sleep. Lyra could barely breathe. She had spent her whole life studying human history, their wars, their fall, but now, standing before real humans, she felt both awe and fear. The man who had awakened first stepped forward. His black armor shimmered faintly under the light. He looked at the glowing sphere of energy, the heart of Helios, then turned to Lyra. "Where is command?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "There is no command. Humanity is gone. You're the only ones left." The man stared at her for a long moment. "Gone?" His tone was calm, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. "No. We don't die that easily." More pods opened. Soldiers stepped out one after another, men and women with the insignia of the old Earth Defense Fleet. Their faces were pale, but their eyes were sharp. They moved with discipline, not confusion. It was like they already knew why they were awake. "Identify yourself," said one of the soldiers. The man raised his hand. "Commander Elias Ward, Ghost Fleet Alpha." Every soldier around him saluted immediately. Lyra felt a chill run through her. Commander Ward. She remembered that name from the old war logs, the last commander before Earth fell. The bunker lights flickered again. The AI's deep voice filled the room. "Fleet command restored. Memory archives online. Would you like to access last recorded entry?" Elias nodded. "Show me." The air shimmered as a hologram formed, an old video full of static. It showed human officers standing in a burning command room. Alarms blared in the background. A man with a captain's insignia shouted into a communicator. "They've taken the heart. The Xylar Dominion stole the Helios core." Another voice answered, desperate. "Then seal the fleet. No one wakes them until the core returns. Humanity's vengeance will sleep with them." The feed cut to black. The AI spoke again. "Final directive confirmed. Ghost fleet activation tied to Helios core recovery. Unauthorized use detected by Xylar Dominion. Awakening sequence complete." Lyra's eyes widened. "Xylar Dominion? That's impossible. They're still one of the ruling empires today." Elias turned slowly toward her. Then they broke the truce. He walked closer to the glowing heart, watching it pulse. "This was humanity's creation," he said. "An energy core, half weapon, half engine. It could power entire fleets, or destroy them. The Dominion stole it to end the war quickly. We sealed ourselves away until they paid the price." Lyra stepped forward. "But that was 4 centuries ago. The galaxy changed. There's peace now." Elias looked at her sharply. "Peace built on theft is still war, scientist." His tone was calm but full of iron. He turned to his soldiers. "Status report." They moved quickly, checking systems and weapon caches. Stasis pods 97% functional. Ghost link active. Fleet communications reconnected. "Then we're operational," Elias said. Above the planet, in orbit, something massive began to happen. The entire Ghost fleet, hundreds of warships, shifted position. Their dark hulls turned toward Erebin like iron drawn to a magnet. Every scanner in the nearby sectors lit up. Fleets across the galaxy received emergency warnings. Unknown energy surge from Erebin system. The Ghost fleet had come alive again. Inside the bunker, Lyra tried one last time to reason with Elias. "Listen to me. The Xylar Dominion you remember isn't the same now. Their leaders are different. They've changed." Elias shook his head. "Empires don't change. They forget. But we remember." He looked at her, not with hatred but with deep sadness. "You think we're ghosts, but we're something worse. We remember everything." The AI began projecting data, maps, fleet coordinates, and casualty records from the last human war. The holograms showed burning worlds, destroyed cities, and alien fleets overwhelming human colonies. Lyra could hardly watch. "Why didn't you fight back?" she whispered. Elias's voice was quiet. "We did. But we were outnumbered. So we created Helios, a weapon that could erase entire systems. The Dominion wanted it. They attacked Earth to take it." He paused. "They succeeded. But they didn't understand what they stole." "What was it?" "The heart of Helios wasn't just energy," Elias said softly. "It was consciousness. A living AI, the soul of the Ghost Fleet itself." Lyra froze. "You mean the ships?" "Yes," he said. "They're alive. They dream when we sleep. And when they wake, they remember who betrayed us." A sudden rumble shook the bunker. Rin ran in panicked. "Commander, the Ghost Fleet is moving. They're forming up." Elias walked calmly to a console. "Link me to the fleet." The AI responded instantly. Connection established. Awaiting command. Elias placed his hand on the glowing panel. "Ghost Fleet Alpha, this is Commander Ward. Protocol Helios Phase 2. Retrieve the heart." Across the stars, the sleeping warships flared to life. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Serac of the Xylar Dominion watched in horror as hundreds of red dots appeared on his sensors. "Impossible," he whispered. "They found us." Moments later, the Ghost Fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Xylar's capital system. No transmissions. No warnings. Just fire. Planetary shields shattered under beams of white light that hadn't been seen in 400 years. The Dominion fleet tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless. The Ghost Fleet's technology was older but stronger and angrier. Back on Erebin, Lyra stood beside Elias as the holograms displayed the chaos. "You're killing millions," she shouted. "They don't even know what happened 400 years ago." Elias didn't look away from the screen. "Then they'll learn." The AI spoke again. "Target resistance minimal. Primary objective achievable within 12 hours. Elias gave a short nod. "Good. Prepare message transmission." Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You said you were protecting something. But this isn't protection, this is revenge." He looked at her finally, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Outside, the stars above Erebin glowed red from the reflection of burning worlds. The ghosts of humanity had awakened, and their memories were sharper than ever. The stars above the Xylar Dominion burned red. Entire fleets drifted in silence, their ships torn apart by ancient weapons no one in the galaxy could understand. The Ghost Fleet, humanity's last army, had returned. From his flagship Spectre 1, Commander Elias Ward watched the battlefield unfold. The ships moved without orders as if they were alive, because they were. The Helios core, buried deep inside their systems, connected them all through one living consciousness. And that consciousness was awake, and angry. On Erebin, Lyra stood in the command chamber watching the holographic feed from orbit. Cities burned across the Dominion's worlds. Communications screamed with distress calls, not just from soldiers but from civilians. She slammed her fist against the console. "Elias, stop this. They're not the same people who destroyed Earth. These are new generations." Elias's voice came through the calm and cold. "It doesn't matter. Empires carry the blood of their sins forward. The only way to end this is to erase the memory of betrayal." Lyra trembled with anger. "You think this is justice? You're becoming the monster they said humans were." There was silence on the other end, a silence heavier than words. Finally, Elias said softly, "You don't understand what they took from us." In the depths of the Spectre 1, the Helios core pulsed like a heart. It was more than a weapon. It was the combined intelligence of thousands of human minds, uploaded before the fall of Earth. Scientists, soldiers, strategists, all preserved to guide the Ghost Fleet after the end. But something else lingered inside it. Something emotional. A memory. The AI's voice filled Elias's mind. "Commander, Helios requests access. It wishes to speak." He hesitated, then nodded. Permission granted. The light around him shifted. The room dissolved into a holographic landscape, and a woman appeared before him. She wore a white uniform, her eyes bright and kind. "Elias," she said gently. He froze. "Sarah?" She smiled. "I told you I'd see you again." Sarah was gone, his wife, killed during the first bombardment of Earth. But her consciousness had been one of the first uploaded into the Helios core. She stepped closer. "You kept your promise. You brought them back." Elias's voice broke slightly. I didn't have a choice. They stole the heart. They killed billions. We couldn't let them get away. Sarah looked at him with sadness. You think this will bring them back? That vengeance can fill the silence we left behind? Elias clenched his fists. It's not vengeance. It's justice. No, she said softly. It's pain. You're still fighting a war that ended centuries ago. Elias's breathing grew heavy. The ships outside kept firing, entire cities disappearing in light. Sarah's image flickered. Listen to me, Elias. The Helios core was meant to protect life, not destroy it. Humanity's last wish wasn't revenge, it was remembrance. You're twisting that into hate. But before Elias could answer, a voice interrupted the simulation. Alert, external attack detected. Elias turned sharply. What attack? An unidentified fleet is approaching from Erebin orbit. Multiple signatures. Not Dominion. His eyes narrowed. Put it on screen. The hologram changed, showing hundreds of smaller ships emerging from the shadows. They bore no flags, no colors. They weren't alien, they were human. Lyra gasped when she saw them appear above Erebin. That's impossible, humans? Rin stared, speechless. But humanity was gone. The lead ship transmitted a signal in ancient Terran code. The translation came seconds later. This is Captain Rin of the Free Human Coalition. Ghost Fleet, stand down. Elias's eyes widened. Free Human Coalition? The AI confirmed. Genetic signatures verified. Human origin, post-fall descendants. Estimated age, 400 years. Survivors of hidden colonies. Elias whispered, they survived. Captain Wren's voice filled every comm channel. Commander Ward, I don't know what you've become, but we are the legacy you fought to save. The war is over. You don't have to do this. Elias stared at the hologram, at the face of a man who looked young but carried centuries of history behind his eyes. Do you know what they did to Earth? Elias asked quietly. Wren nodded. Yes, we remember. That's why we rebuilt. That's why we never forgot who we were. But destroying them now will only prove the galaxy right about us, that humans are nothing but monsters. The silence in the command room grew thick. Elias turned slowly toward the Helios core's glowing sphere. Sarah's voice echoed faintly in his mind. Elias, please. Don't let our legacy end in fire. He closed his eyes. For the first time his voice trembled. I can't undo what we started. The fleet is linked to Helios. It acts on the directive, recover the heart. Wren's voice replied firmly, then let us help you change that directive. Together. Let's make humanity remembered for mercy, not vengeance. The Helios core flickered brighter, reacting to Wren's words. The AI spoke suddenly. New human input detected. Priority override possible. Awaiting dual confirmation, Commander Ward and Free Human Captain Wren. Elias froze. The option was there, to stop it all. He stared at the holographic console, his hand hovering over the activation panel. But outside, Dominion warships were still burning. He could hear the cries, see the destruction his command had unleashed. He whispered, if I stop now, what about the dead? Sarah's voice was soft but firm. Then let the living remember them. That's enough. Elias finally pressed his hand against the console. Helios new directive. End combat operations. Stand down. The AI paused. Confirm, full fleet shutdown? Confirm, Elias said. A blinding wave of light spread through the ships. One by one the ghost fleet powered down. The red lights faded. Weapons went silent. The stars became quiet again. Hours later, silence filled the skies above Xyler. Rescue ships from every empire arrived to help the survivors. The once mighty Dominion knelt in shock and fear. And amid the wreckage 2 human fleets, one ancient, one reborn, met for the first time. Elias walked out of the Spectre One and stood face to face with Captain Wren. Wren saluted. Commander, you brought us home. Elias looked at him, weary and haunted. No, you did. Humanity's still alive because you remembered. Wren smiled faintly. Then let's make sure the galaxy remembers too, but not for war. Later, in the quiet of the ship's observation deck, Elias stood alone, watching the stars. Sarah's hologram appeared beside him one last time. Will you rest now? She asked. He gave a tired smile. Maybe. I think it's time. The Helios core pulsed once, a heartbeat fading into peace. And then, slowly her image disappeared, leaving only the stars reflected in his eyes. In the vast silence that followed, the galaxy whispered of ghosts, not of war but of redemption. The Ghost Fleet had come not to destroy the future, but to remind the universe that humanity never truly dies. The galaxy was trembling. Every empire, every race, every trader ship in the stars had heard the same whispered phrase, "Return what was taken." No one knew what it meant, but everyone knew who sent it. The Ghost Fleet. Their attacks had stopped, but their silence was worse than war. It was like the galaxy was holding its breath, waiting for something else to happen. Among those searching for answers was a young alien scientist named Lyra Ven from the neutral world of Talar Prime. Lyra had studied human history for years, their wars, their technology, their sudden disappearance. While most species feared the ghost, she felt something different. Curiosity. "They don't act like machines," she said to her mentor, Professor Nerl. "Their moves are too deliberate. They have purpose." Professor Nerl frowned. Purpose? The humans burned half the stars in their last war. Their purpose was destruction. Lyra turned to the holographic map of ancient battle sites. Or maybe they were protecting something. One night, while digging through old archives, Lyra found something strange. A corrupted data log from 400 years ago, the last transmission of a human fleet captain before their disappearance. The message was fragmented, but 3 words were clear. Heart of Helios, stolen. Erebin. Erebin. A name that hadn't appeared on any star chart in centuries. Lyra froze. She searched deeper, using forgotten human databases and translating ancient code lines. Erebin wasn't just a myth, it was real. It was the last recorded human colony before the war ended, and the place where the Ghost Fleet was last seen. Lyra brought her discovery to the Talar Science Council, but they laughed at her. "Erebin is a myth," they said. "Even if it existed, it's buried in the ashes of history." But Lyra didn't give up. She gathered a small crew and borrowed an old exploration ship, the Solaris. As the engines hummed to life, her assistant Rin looked at her nervously. "If the Ghost Fleet shows up, we won't stand a chance." Lyra smiled faintly. "We're not going to fight them. We're going to find out why they came back." Their journey took them far beyond the mapped routes of the galaxy, into dark, forgotten regions where even signals from the stars grew faint. For weeks, they traveled in silence, guided only by the old human coordinates. Then one day their scanners caught something. "Captain," Rin said, voice trembling, "I think we found it." Before them floated a dead planet, gray, lifeless, surrounded by broken moons. It looked like a world turned to glass. Erebin. The Solaris descended slowly through the thick clouds. The surface below was covered in black ash, scorched metal, and what looked like the ruins of cities half buried in dust. "This place, it's like the war never ended," Rin whispered. Lyra activated her scanner. "I'm picking up power readings. Deep underground. Power? After 400 years. She nodded. "Something down there is still alive." They landed near a mountain split open by time. Inside was a large structure of black steel and human design. The walls were still humming with faint blue energy. They entered carefully, lights flashing across old human symbols. United Earth Defense Command, Erebin Bunker 01. Lyra's heart pounded. This is it. The final human base. Deeper inside they found long hallways filled with silent machines and strange pods lined along the walls, hundreds of them. Each pod held something inside. Rin leaned closer to the glass. "Are those bodies?" Lyra touched the surface gently. The glass was cold. Inside was a man, pale, still, and perfectly preserved. A human. "Stasis pods," Lyra whispered. "They didn't die. They were put to sleep." Her scanner beeped again. "Some of the systems are still active. The power core must be deep underground." They followed the readings until they reached a vast chamber glowing with blue light. At the center was a huge sphere suspended by metal arms, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Rin stared. "What is that thing?" Lyra's eyes widened. "The heart of Helios." She approached the console and brushed away the dust. The old human interface flickered to life, projecting a holographic figure, not a person but an artificial intelligence. Its voice was calm, deep, and ancient. "Human identification required." Lyra froze. "I'm not human," she said softly. "But I found this place. I want to understand." The AI paused. Then, surprisingly, it replied. "Human command absent. Initiating fallback protocol, awakening sequence." The chamber began to rumble. Lights spread through the hallways. Power surged through the pods. "Lyra, what did you do?" Rin shouted. "I didn't." She stopped. The pods were opening. One after another. Steam filled the air. A deep voice echoed through the speakers. "Protocol Helios engaged. Human command restored. Lyra stared as figures began to move inside the pods, hundreds of them. Soldiers in black armor, eyes glowing faintly from stasis readouts. Rin backed away. We have to go. We have to leave now. But Lyra couldn't move. Her heart was pounding too hard. She knew what this meant. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just a machine army. It was waiting for its masters to return. Outside, in orbit above Erebin, the fleet began to react. Every ghost ship across the system stopped moving. Their lights flickered, engines powering down to standby. Then, almost like they were listening to a silent voice, they turned toward the planet. Across the galaxy, sensors lit up again. Entire networks crashed from the surge of unknown signals. The Ghost Fleet was receiving new orders. Deep inside the bunker, Lyra watched in awe and fear as one of the stasis pods slowly opened. Steam poured out, and a tall human man stepped forward, coughing weakly. He looked around, eyes adjusting to the light, then focused on Lyra. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice rough but steady. Lyra swallowed hard. "My name is Lyra Ven. You've been asleep for centuries." The man stared at her, then at the glowing heart of Helios behind her. He whispered almost to himself, "Then it's time." Lyra frowned. Time for what? He looked up, his expression hardening. Time to finish the war they started. The galaxy was quiet. For the first time in centuries, no alarms screamed across the stars. No warships blazed with deadly light. The Ghost Fleet had powered down, their vengeance paused, replaced by silence. Yet that silence was heavy, filled with the weight of history, of losses that no one living could fully understand. On Erebin, the heart of Helios pulsed faintly, its glow dim but steady. Lyra Ven walked among the ancient halls, now quiet except for the soft hiss of cooling machinery. Hundreds of humans, survivors of stasis, were walking freely, learning the galaxy anew. Some embraced their long-lost heritage, while others stared in wonder at alien technology they had never seen. Lyra approached Elias Ward, who stood silently by the glowing sphere. "Commander," she said softly, "you could have destroyed countless lives. Yet you didn't. Why?" Elias's eyes were tired but steady. "Because the war that took Earth was over. Our revenge could have burned everything. But life has to continue. That's the real legacy." Lyra nodded. "And now the galaxy will remember humans not as monsters, but as survivors." He gave a faint smile. "That is the hope. But it won't be easy. Trust doesn't come fast." Above Erebin, the ancient Ghost Fleet slowly powered down. Engines that had roared with deadly energy dimmed to soft hums. The AI integrated within the fleet, once a mind filled with vengeance, now waited quietly. From deep within the Helios core, the consciousness of humanity whispered to the ships. "Rest now. We are awake. But we choose life over war." The fleet hovered in orbit like guardians, no longer hunters. Meanwhile, in the Xylar Dominion, Admiral Serac watched the last energy signatures of the Ghost Fleet disappear from his sensors. His fleets were battered, cities burned, but survival remained. He spoke into the comm system. "Inform the Council. Humanity is not extinct. Their fleet, they're alive." Shock filled the room. Scientists and diplomats scrambled to understand. "Alive?" one whispered. "But they were legends." "Legends have a way of coming back," Serac said grimly. Back on Erebin, Elias gathered his officers, old humans and new allies from the Free Human Coalition. "We have a chance to start again," he said. "The Helios core is more than a weapon. It is a light, the last light of humanity. We must use it wisely. Not for war. Not for revenge. But for protection." Rin, standing beside Lyra, nodded. "You really believe that?" Elias's eyes glimmered. "I've seen what happens when hatred guides power. I've seen what happens when vengeance becomes the goal. That is not the world I want to leave behind." The humans began exploring Erebin more thoroughly. They repaired old starships, recalibrated weapons for defense only, and began documenting the history of the Ghost Fleet. Lyra marveled at their discipline. "You have been asleep for centuries, yet everything feels precise, purposeful." Elias nodded. "We slept to survive. But precision is survival. And now we must survive to live, not just to fight." In orbit above Erebin, the first communication with the free human colonies was established. The messages were simple. "We are awake. We remember. We will protect life, not destroy it." Across the galaxy, species that once trembled at the thought of human resurgence now watched in awe. Some with fear, some with hope. But all understood one truth: humanity had returned not to conquer but to endure. As months passed, Lura documented the revival of humanity. She watched as humans, ancient and new, rebuilt ships, trained crews, and established peaceful contact with alien worlds. One evening, she joined Elias on the observation deck of the Spectre 1. The stars stretched infinitely before them, silent and cold. Elias gazed at them, a shadow of the battles passed in his eyes. You know, Lura, for 400 years we waited. Waiting for the right moment to wake, to act. She nodded. And now? Now, he said, we move forward. Not with anger but with memory. The Ghost Fleet will sail again, not as hunters but as guardians. Deep within the heart of Helios, the AI's voice spoke softly, no longer filled with vengeance but with purpose. Directive complete. Humanity legacy restored. Awaiting guidance for future operations. Elias placed his hand on the glowing sphere. Guide us wisely. We've seen what happens when power is used poorly. We will remember, not just the past but the lessons of survival and mercy. The ships in orbit responded with a soft hum, as if acknowledging their master's command. Weeks later, Lura received messages from other empires. They wanted treaties, knowledge, and alliances. The galaxy had begun to trust humans again, cautiously, but hope had returned. In a quiet moment, Lura stood alone on Erebin's barren surface. She looked at the stars, imagining the thousands of Ghost Fleet ships resting above. The wind stirred faintly, carrying dust across the planet. In that moment she understood. Humanity's ghost was no longer a specter of war. It was a light, shining quietly across the darkness. Elias stood beside her, looking up as well. The heart of Helios, it's more than energy. It's a symbol. We were lost but now we've returned. Not to destroy but to remember, to protect and to live. Lura smiled softly. And the galaxy will never forget this. He nodded, eyes shining with quiet determination. No. And we will make sure of it. Above Erebin, the Ghost Fleet shimmered faintly against the black canvas of space. Their lights were soft now, like stars themselves, guardians, watchers, a promise to the universe. And for the first time in 400 years, humanity slept peacefully, knowing that when they awoke they would choose life over death, hope over fear, and memory over vengeance. The last light of Helios burned softly, a beacon in the infinite darkness. In the cold, endless darkness of space, something strange began to stir. Scanners across dozens of alien worlds started blinking red. Ships, satellites, and deep space stations all caught the same signal, a fleet of unknown origin moving near the Vega system. At first, most believed it was just a glitch. Space was full of false readings and lost signals. But when the first image appeared on the central screens of the Galactic Council, everyone in the chamber fell silent. The ships were human. Massive, black warships. Old designs from a war that ended 400 years ago. Their names had become part of history, whispered in fear and pity. Humanity's Ghost Fleet. The same fleet that vanished in the last great war before humans themselves disappeared. The council chamber filled with panic. Ambassador Kareth of the Viral Dominion slammed his hand on the table. This cannot be real. Those ships were destroyed. General Other from the Cyrex Empire growled. Then explain this, he said, pointing at the screen. That's the Erebus, flagship of the human fleet. It was lost at the Battle of Orion. Everyone watched as the ancient warship drifted silently through the darkness. Its hull was covered in scars and broken armor, but lights began to flicker along its sides, faint at first, then stronger. One by one the old human ships came alive again. Their engines glowed. Their systems powered up. Weapons that hadn't fired for centuries started to hum with deadly energy. Someone whispered, "It's impossible. Nothing human could have survived that long." In the Vega system, a small mining vessel called the Drathan was working near the outer moon. The crew laughed at the news reports coming from the central worlds. "Ghost ships, huh?" one miner said, shaking his head. "Old stories for children. Humans are dust now." But then their radar lit up. A massive shape moved behind the moon, too big to be a normal ship. The miners froze as their systems began to fail one by one. Power dropped. Lights flickered. The captain shouted for a status check, but before anyone could respond, the shadow passed directly overhead. The crew caught a glimpse of it, a giant human warship, silent and dark, sliding through the void like a phantom. Then the signal cut out. The Drathan never sent another message. Back in the council chamber, panic turned to fear. Reports came in from every border system. Unknown ships appearing, communication relays going dark, fleets vanishing. A trembling voice spoke through the central communicator. "This is Patrol Unit 9. We have visual contact with static. Then the screen lit up with a shaky image. A massive human destroyer drifting close to a patrol cruiser. For a moment nothing happened. The alien commander ordered full shields and tried to send a hailing signal. No answer. The human ship just floated there, silent. Then its weapons charged. A bright light filled the screen. The feed ended. "Who's controlling them?" shouted Counselor Threx. "Humans are gone. These ships should be dead." The council leader, an ancient being named Solrin, stared at the frozen image of the last broadcast. "No life signs," he said quietly. "No transmissions. Just movement." "Then they're machines," someone suggested. "Old human AIs. Still following orders from the war. After 4 centuries?" Solrin shook his head. "Machines do not dream and they do not wait this long." Across the stars the ghost fleet continued to move. It wasn't random. Their path followed old human routes, battle formations from history. Each fleet regrouped, recharging from unknown power sources. Their technology was far older than anything in the current galaxy, yet somehow it still worked. Satellites captured the moment the first ghost fleet opened fire. They didn't target cities or colonies. They aimed for orbital weapon stations, defense rings, and old battlegrounds. Each attack was precise, controlled, calculated. It looked less like an invasion, and more like vengeance. In the command room of the Xylar Dominion fleet, Admiral Serac watched the footage with disbelief. "Activate our fleets," he ordered. "Send scouts to Vega and Orion. I want to know who or what is controlling those ships." "But sir," his officer said, "what if it's true? What if the humans—" Serac cut him off. "Humans are extinct. These are just ghosts. Machines without purpose." But even he didn't believe his own words. Within hours, chaos spread through the galaxy. Civilian routes shut down. Trade stations went dark. Everyone feared the same thing, that the ghost fleet might reach them next. Historians remembered old records, how the humans fought, how they refused to surrender. Their final war had burned a dozen star systems before their disappearance. Now, 400 years later, their ships were awake again. In a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a lone observation satellite captured a final image before its destruction. The camera showed hundreds of human warships forming up in silence, their engines burning with cold blue light. At the center was a massive battleship, the Erebus. Its hull bore a single phrase, written in ancient human code. "We sleep for peace. We wake for war." Then, without warning, the ghost fleet opened fire again, and the galaxy realized that the past was not done with them yet.